Hi, my name is Jessie Veltstra, and I'm a volunteer with the TRANScending Task Force and administrator of the LAMMP database. I'm also a forensic genetic genealogist intern with Redgrave Research and a longtime advocate for missing and unidentified persons. My focus has been on supporting marginalized communities and specifically LGBTQ, Black, and Indigenous communities. The systemic and intersectional changes that these groups all face can come together to create an environment where missing people in these groups are much less likely to be found, and unidentified people in these groups are less likely to be identified. Um, LAMP stands for the LGBTQ Accountability for Missing and Murdered Persons Database. The TRANScending Task Force created this database to serve the community and attempt to match any unidentified people. Oh, sorry. I went backwards. um, Hold on a second. Okay, so we created this database to serve the community and attempt to match any unidentified people with missing people whose cases require LGBTQ informed care and consideration. The database is private and only searchable to those with an approved login in order to protect the details of missing people who may be endangered. It includes support for professional use by investigators, such as anthropologists, medical examiners, detectives, etc., as well as use by forensic genetic genealogists, and it includes fields for get match numbers and family members and related family trees. When an LGBTQ plus person goes missing, there are immediate challenges associated with even reporting them as missing. The LGBTQ community finds that that LGBTQ people are often estranged from their biological families or family of origin. They will have chosen families, which are very normal, and they may not be allowed by law enforcement agencies to report their loved ones as a missing person. If they are reported as missing, LGBTQ people will often face biases from law enforcement that can have detrimental effects on how their case is handled. Their case will most likely face a lack of official resources or support, such as entry or publication of their missing persons report to databases or news reports. They'll face delays in investigating their disappearance. They may find a complete lack of investigation of their case. And for trans and gender variant people specifically, there are detrimental official behaviors such as dead naming, misgendering, and presenting the missing person as the wrong gender. That's the same thing. Missing and unidentified LGBTQ cases are less likely to get substantial media attention. And many times, if there is media attention, we see that the focus will be on their sexual orientation or gender presentation, which are presented in a negative light. There's also a deep distrust of law enforcement by the LGBTQ community due to these biases. Um, and there is a lot of history and present day problems that occur when LGBTQ people encounter law enforcement and have to be in contact with them. The LAMP database is one way. Ooh, did I go? I keep advancing it wrong. The LAMP database is one way the TRANScending Task Force is trying to address and alleviate these issues. As the majority of us are members of the LGBTQ community ourselves, we're able to ensure that the community's concerns and issues are centered in our work. Our missing persons database is private and not publicly viewable. This is because of privacy and safety concerns for the missing persons included in our database. It can be dangerous for an LGBTQ person to be out, and we want to ensure that people are not endangered by our identifying them as part of our community if they're not currently out. The Transit Task Force's Unidentified Persons database is public and searchable to attempt to give them the best possible chance at being identified. Because they are unidentified, public exposure and outreach on their case may be the key to helping getting them identified. And if that information wasn't publicly available, it could hinder their identification. Not everyone in the unidentified persons database will be a member of the LGBTQ community, but uncertainty about an unidentified person's gender or sex is reason enough to include them. We would rather include them than miss someone. Chosen family, friends, family of origin, biological family, and members of the public can all enter cases into the LAMMP database. It is different from what other missing persons databases allow because it does not require a police report to be filed, which may not be possible, and does not require prior approval by law enforcement agencies. Both of those requirements are in place for the NamUs database, which is the only other missing persons database where non-law enforcement can enter in missing persons cases. Members of the public can also enter in potential trans or gender variant LGBTQ people in the unidentified persons database. This is not possible in any of the other unidentified persons databases. And once they're entered in, we will evaluate each of the cases individually. Let's see. Okay. NamUs is the National Missing and Unidentified Persons Database. It's the only official U.S. national database for missing, unidentified, and unclaimed persons that is public facing. There are currently, as of April 1st, 2021, 20,271 missing persons listed, 13,641 unidentified persons listed, and 10,869 unclaimed persons listed. These numbers are a starting point, not the actual total number of people in each of those categories. The NamUs website states that over 600,000 people go missing each year, and 4,400 unidentified bodies are recovered. Thankfully, the vast majority of these cases are resolved quickly, but there are still tens of thousands of people who are missing for more than 1 year. And of the unidentified people that are recovered each year, approximately 1,000 will remain unidentified for more than 1 year. The Unidentified Persons Database was launched in 2007, and the Missing Persons Database was launched in 2008. As of April 1st, 2021, only 4 states have legislation requiring that cases be included in NamUs, and its usage is largely still voluntary for law enforcement agencies in all states. The quality and inclusion of case information varies greatly by the department, which creates a need for additional research when we are identifying cases that may meet the criteria to be included in the LAMMP database. State and local missing and unidentified persons cases also vary wildly in their quality and usability. Some are not publicly accessible at all. Some are not searchable. Some cannot be ordered chronologically. And some states limit the amount of information that can be included those databases to the point where they are functionally useless. Several states do not regularly update or include new cases in their databases. A few states just have a monthly PDF file with minimal information that they publish and no database to speak of. Additionally, people who are considered high risk are routinely not included in those databases despite being reported as missing. These may be sex workers, habitual runaways, people with a history of drug use, or people with criminal history. due to the really endemic anti-LGBTQ discrimination and the resulting economic instability that that can cause, LGBTQ people may fall into any of these categories and are often considered to be living a high-risk lifestyle. Additionally, we find that unidentified persons may be misclassified demographically, which can drastically decrease the chance of a person being identified, such as a cisgender white man being classified as a cisgender Black woman. There have been multiple cases where this and similar things have happened, and they have delayed identification of that person for months or even years. Missing people may also be misclassified, which can have the same results as with unidentified persons. These mistakes or misclassifications will also confound the automatic case comparisons done by the NamUs database and may result in investigators discounting potential matches between cases erroneously. There are also archaic case practices that were and sometimes still are in place in various databases, whose end result is a compounding of years of unknown errors. One of these past practices was that unidentified remains with unknown or ambiguous sex characteristics were listed as male by default. Older unidentified persons cases may have been classified as one sex or another based on outdated scientific methods as well. And the remains likely have not been re-examined recently to confirm or revise the findings. Newer databases, for the most part, added an option for unknown sex, but there are still some very large databases where remains either have to be listed as male or female with no other options, and remains with an unknown sex are still listed as male. We've come across many instances of transgender and gender variant people specifically being dead named, misgendered, and having pre-transition photos included in their missing persons entries. We've seen extremely offensive and medically inaccurate and frankly offensive descriptions of the missing person. All of these practices actively reduce the chances of a missing trans person being found or identified, which is the result that law enforcement and missing persons organizations should be working towards. Another issue we see is glaring omissions of identifying physical features that could help match a missing person's case with an unidentified person's case. If you don't know that you're looking for someone who had surgical screws in their skull when they went missing, you might discount the unidentified remains that were found in the local area that had surgical screws in their skull because that feature was not mentioned in their missing persons report. All of these things can delay or prevent the resolution of cases long term. As of yesterday, April 1st, 2021, the LAMMP database holds case information for 74 missing LGBTQ people. These numbers are a starting point, not an absolute total, due to the difficulties involved in identifying and finding information about missing LGBTQ people. 35 of our cases are transgender or non-binary people. Various polls and studies in the US have stated that the LGBTQ community makes up about 4.5% of the adult population, with about 0.6% of the population being transgender. Trans and non-binary people make up just about half of our database. With NamUs currently housing 20,271 missing persons and assuming that 4.5% of those cases should be from from the LGBTQ community, we should expect to have 912 LGBTQ people included in the NamUs database. With 0.6% of the population being transgender, we should expect that 122 of the people that are listed in the missing persons database in NamUs to be transgender people. This is if we're assuming that the rate at which LGBTQ people go missing is proportional to the total population. Within NamUs, we only find one case of a missing trans person whose sex is listed as other, and that's a trans woman. She is not the only trans person included in the NamUs database, with the other transgender or non-binary people being misgendered. 3 people, 1 cisgender Black teen and 2 cisgender Asian women, have their case listed as unsure in the NamUs database. Of the 4 transgender people we have found in the RCMP database, only 1 case is relatively without issues, and they still have the term transgendered, which is an archaic term, in the missing persons description. 3 out of the 4 are dead named. 1 includes a pre-transition photo. 2 are not noted as being transgender at all. There's a clear lack of support and education on display here, and that has a negative impact on cases involving the LGBTQ community. And these are all issues that we're seeking to address and counter with our efforts. The LAMMP database holds 2 unclaimed transgender people that have been located. Their family of origin or biological family members need to be found because the laws in most areas will not allow their partners or chosen family to claim their bodies for burial. 16 of the missing people included in our database are known murder victims. Some still have open cases in missing persons databases, and others do not. Some of these missing people have had their partial remains located, but their case will stay open in case more remains are located. There are many more cases where the missing person is thought to be a potential murder victim, but it hasn't been confirmed officially. 2 of the cases in the LAMMP database are not included in any other database due to circumstances or lack of cooperation from law enforcement agencies. 54 of the cases that are included in LAMMP have NamUs case files. 4 have RCMP case files. So how do we find cases? Well, we search databases like NamUs and state and local and unofficial databases as well. We regularly check newly entered cases for indications that some of them may fall under our purview. Because of the difficulties involved in identifying cases that should be included in LAMMP, this involves me or other volunteers searching individual cases. We will also search through social media sites like Facebook and Twitter and traditional media like online news reports or newspapers for mentions of LGBTQ people going missing. We will also get notified about cases by other missing and unidentified persons groups or individuals who attempt to assist in missing and unidentified persons cases. We've also been sent cases by true crime podcast hosts, true crime YouTube hosts, and even administrators of various Reddit groups. Members of law enforcement who are aware and supportive of our efforts will contact us to let us know about cases sometimes if they believe that we can assist with them. Sometimes we even get contacted by the chosen biological family members or the family of origin of missing people, and members of the public who want to help bring people home safely and quickly. In order to recognize that a case should belong in the LAMP database, we will look for specific mentions in news reports that a missing person is LGBTQ, and also any social media accounts that we can find for the missing person. We review and search missing and unidentified person sites like the Charlie Project and the Doe Network, who may or may not list someone as being LGBTQ or being a potential victim of a serial killer or murderer who targeted LGBTQ people. We search for outdated terms for LGBTQ people in these databases because many times the case information that is listed hasn't been updated or contains language that is directly quoting old newspapers and and sources that use those outdated terms. There are specific circumstances or euphemisms which were and continue to be used by the LGBTQ community to shield certain relationships from public acknowledgement for various reasons. The negative consequences of being outed with these relationships include, but are not limited to, potential social, personal, and professional backlash if those relationships were to be known publicly. As members of the community, we're aware of these indicators and circumstances and euphemisms, and we will investigate further to see if the missing person should be included in LAMP if we find any of these indicators. Other signs that we may have found a case that meets our criteria is a person with pictures, descriptions, clothing, or an alias that appears to be of a different gender than the sex that is listed for the person. Sometimes the person will also have tattoos or personal belongings that point to them potentially being LGBTQ. Especially with missing trans children, we will see missing persons flyers or reports where there's an excessive and aggressive misgendering with the use of pronouns, such as repeatedly referring to a trans girl as Mr. or he, or a complete lack of pronouns to the point where sometimes the sentences being used on the flyer do not make sense. These will sometimes be seen together with outdated descriptions of the missing child or pre-transition photographs. These are common occurrence with several large missing children's organizations, despite all of these actions making it harder to locate the missing child. This appears to occur even if the trans child family is supportive of them. So we have a multi-step process for handling cases. First, we'll get a report or find a missing persons case and check if we think there's enough information to suggest that they might need our attention or help. We may contact law enforcement at that point in time to confirm the details of the missing persons report if we're unsure or unclear about the information in the case file. If a mistake has been made in classification, our contact with the department at this point usually helps to get it fixed immediately. After that, if there's enough indicators that the person should be included in LAMP, we'll start researching databases, newspapers, traditional media sources, and social media for information about the person. Okay. Doing all this helps us figure out what kind of support the case needs and where we can be the most helpful. We'll enter their information into the LAMMP database. And I will enter their case information into the NamUs database as well if they do not already have a NamUs entry. And then we start our social media outreach efforts, which includes contacting other missing persons groups, posting across platforms about missing persons, creating and sharing flyers, etc. We will then check unidentified persons databases just in case the missing person has been found and is unidentified. If we find a potential match during this step, we will contact the appropriate authorities to submit that information. If the chosen biological family or family of origin is looking for the missing person and appears to be supportive, we may contact them and see what kinds of support they want or need. This can include notifying them about what kinds of official resources are available to them, which community groups may be able to assist them, and targeted social media outreach, and also things like help with family tree building and how to include the commercial DNA tests that they've taken in sites like GetMatch and Family Tree DNA. This is so that if their loved one is found as an unidentified person who is having forensic genetic genealogy done for them, they will be quickly identified. We will continue to check regularly for case updates and possible matches in unidentified persons databases. We will not stop looking until the person is found or identified. We act as a point of contact for law enforcement, which protects the members of our community from unwanted contact with police. We can help push case information to those communities that are most likely to help with the cases. That includes the larger LGBTQ community and also missing persons groups that actually have a large number of active members who tend to have family members and loved ones who are missing as well and want to help other people with their cases. We will also work with online media news outlets to help spread awareness of the cases. We treat the missing persons cases and unidentified persons cases that we include in the LAMMP database as if they were our own family and consider them part of our family. And we hope that all of our hard work will help return them to the people who know and love them. So that's the end of my presentation, and here's my contact information. And I don't know if there's any questions that I can ask. I have no idea how long I took.
It's okay. We have a few minutes before, we have a few minutes break in between. So you do have 3 questions in the Q&A. Do you know how to get to it?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
We left you 3 there that we think you should answer.
Okay. All right. So this first one says, does correctly identifying a person by their gender identity ever lead to problems with biological families who refuse to acknowledge their deceased family's member's gender identity? Short answer is yes. We have seen cases where people have been identified, their chosen family has come out in strong support of them to make sure that they were gendered and referred to by the proper name, only to have the identified person get turned over, have their body turned over to their biological family, and then treated very badly for burial and interment, including altering their appearance and burying them under their dead name. So yes, it does happen. And it is not unusual for it to happen, unfortunately. Okay. The next question says, have you ever experienced an abusive family, partner, or someone submitting a missing persons report to us, or abusers attempting to gain access to the missing persons database? No, we haven't, but we also would research a situation to evaluate whether or not we thought that that was happening. I've seen it in other cases that are not LAMP cases. And it became very quickly apparent what was happening in those cases because of the behavior of the people involved, and because the family, the friends and chosen family members of these people came out and stated that was what was happening. But no, we have not had that occur with the LAMP database at this point. Okay. All right, I did that one. All right. This question says, are there situations in cases where using someone's dead name is appropriate? Can it be helpful in any way in solving cases? So knowing the person's dead name can be useful for attempting to find records, possibly. But really, there's not actually any good reason to use a trans person's dead name. That's it.